companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power! We people who are darker than blue, are we gonna stand around this town and let what others say come true? We're just good for nothing.
You are listening to The Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we are joined in this hour by Judith Brown Dianis, the executive director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, talking about the Supreme Court decisions that came down today. And there were, Judith, I have to say, after yesterday, I thought, oh, okay, you all are going to drop all of these big cases on the last day of your session. Right.
Yeah.
Which is also just like
they love to do that. They love to do their dirt on Fridays.
Yeah. So
and the last day.
Totally dramatic. Right. For no reason. We talked about the Trump v. Casa case just a moment ago, which is essentially allowing people to opt out, allowing them to opt their children out of learning about things in school that they don't want them to based on religious their religious convictions, and sort of the slippery slope that creates for people just to be able to say, I don't want my kids learning about black people, right? I don't want my kids learning about, the plight of immigrants. I don't want my children learning about whatever. And it does strike me a little bit, and maybe we can come around to this. It does strike me that it's so in line with Elon Musk earlier this year talking about the biggest threat to civilization was empathy. Right, the children being taught empathy for other people, in his mind, is the biggest threat to civilization. But we'll come back around to that. I do want to just talk though about this birthright citizenship decision. So this is essentially in response to I'm talking like I'm the lawyer here, but it's just to remind people that this is in response to Trump's executive order, where he essentially, in his mind, he can just, with the wave of a wand, right, like just change whatever he doesn't like. And so earlier this year, in his slew of executive orders, he had an executive order that essentially tried to eliminate the birthright citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment. That obviously was immediately litigated, and then the court made its decision today, sort of in a backdoor kind of way, right? Because they didn't actually rule on Trump's executive order. They ruled on whether or not lower courts, have the right to do universal injunctions on the stuff coming out of the White House. Is that right? Because it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not that it was backdoor. I mean, like, this is what was before them, right? The constitutionality of the actual executive order was not the thing that was before them. Right. What was being challenged was the fact that when the executive order basically says that if you are born here to an undocumented person or someone who does not have permanent status or a U.S. citizen, you are not a citizen. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was that there were cases filed in several states, and some of those lower courts, the district courts, put in place national injunctions. Mm-hmm. Basically, like, totally makes sense, right? Like, you put in place an executive order that impacts everybody across the country. Right. And so when this case comes before me, right, and I'm seeing, like, you challenging birthright citizenship, I'm going to put in place an order that impacts everybody across the country. Right. And so what happened was the administration decided to be like petty about it, right? Because they know they actually can't win on whether or not this thing is constitutional, right?
Because it is in direct violation of the 14th Amendment.
Of like the actual, the Constitution. The basic, I mean, like the actual language, right? Like, like it's crazy.
The plain language, I think, is what you lawyers say. The plain language.
It's the plain language. That's right. Very good for you. Good for you. And what they did though was like, okay, we're going to challenge the power of the courts, right? To put in place these national injunctions. Now, what is important about that, right, is that they are like in the big scheme outside of the birthright citizenship. They are constantly trying to chip away at the power of the courts, right? And the power of lawyers and because that means no checks and balances. Right. If they can say the courts don't have the power to do this, the courts don't have the power to do that, they don't have the power to put in like injunctions to stop nationwide things. They want to stop the courts from checking them. Right. So that they can get away with all the things. So that's really important. Right. Yep. So in this instance, it is the birthright citizenship piece, where the courts have said, lower courts are like, no, you can't do this, and where you can't do this anywhere across the country. And so what it means, though, in effect, is that there are 28 states, that didn't sue in the first place. Right. And so in those 28 states that did not sue around this executive order, because there's no nationwide injunction stopping this from moving forward in those 28 states, it will go into effect. They have 30 days basically to bring some lawsuits to stop it. But it's important because it's states like Texas. Texas, the Texas Attorney General is not going to bring a lawsuit to stop them from moving forward on birthright citizenship. And challenging it. So now what has to happen, there's a few things that are happening. One is a lawsuit's been filed for a nationwide class action because the court basically said individuals have to bring these cases and courts have to decide on individual rights. And so there's a nationwide class action that's been filed by the ACLU and others. They were ready with the papers, so that's going to happen. And so hopefully that will cover people in states where Texas and Florida and Alabama and Louisiana, where we won't see their attorney generals in those red states stepping up to protect people from this unconstitutional executive order.
Well, I want to ask you, when we come forward, I want to ask you about the logistics of this, because it also just feels like it's mucking up and gumming up the system. And so, and I think, and you alluded to that the ruling today actually blocks the EO from taking effect for 30 days while litigation continues. So there is a lot that's going to have to happen in the next 30 days. But we're going to continue this conversation about the court's decisions today with Judith Brown Dianis, Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, when we come forward. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima tax relief.
But when I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
I am in conversation with our friend Judith Brown Dianis, the Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, talking about the Supreme Court's decisions today, but not just today, right? Like throughout the term. And we had some doozies dropped in the last week and couple of weeks. And so I do want to though, Judith, talk a little bit about what we were just referring to, which is sort of the logistical nightmare of the court essentially saying on the issue of birthright citizenship that the district courts cannot do national injunctions, universal injunctions, and that individuals would have to sue in order to stop Trump's executive order repealing birthright citizenship in order to make sure that they had relief.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, like, just like the idea that state by state,
right,
we will have decisions about citizenship.
Right.
Right. That makes no sense. Either you're a citizen or you're not, no matter where you live.
In America.
It's not because I live in Texas. Right. Texas, I'm born in Texas, and I'm not a citizen, but had I been born in New York, I would be a citizen.
Right.
Like it is, it will be a patchwork
right.
that is really dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could, and driven by politics, not by law. Right.
Right.
It's because your attorney general didn't sue. I mean, so what will happen is, let's say, so we have this class action that will happen, national class action. That's great, right? But those are like cumbersome cases, right? And and we could imagine that there's going to be a lot of back and forth about whether or not people belong in the class or don't belong in the class, right?
Yes.
And that'll again be all like procedural mumbo jumbo ridiculousness, right?
Yeah.
When really what is at the heart of this is whether or not this executive order is constitutional.
Right. Right.
And so you could be, so state by state, so what will have to happen, right, is if, let's say if the class action doesn't move forward or something happens else, every time a baby's born,
right,
they're going to have to go challenge the executive order.
Right.
Like, could you imagine you just have a baby, they're asking for your papers in the room, right, when you give birth.
Right.
to determine whether or not your child is a citizen, then you got to go get a lawyer to fight an executive order. That's how like wacky it could get.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off.
Oh, okay.
I was taking a breath.
Okay, right, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah.
It's constitutionality, like whether or not birthright citizenship is constitutional or not, is of national import.
That's right. Yeah.
It is not a state by state right that you hold.
Right.
And so we just really have to understand that while they took us on the distraction of like the courts and whether or not the courts have the power, but it is a distraction which is important to them, right? Again, because they don't want checks and like Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson like pointed this out, right? Like, you know, if we let this go forward, basically there is no check on the executive's powers.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Just not on birthright citizenship, but on every fundamental right.
Right. Yeah, it does. I mean, it is a little, you know, there's been lots of, particularly with the ICE raids here in Los Angeles, but also in other places around the country, and the kind of imagery that we're seeing, right? People fleeing down the street, or, you know, there was the one from Martha's Vineyard where, you know, folks were running through the woods, right? And so there have been these comparisons to the Fugitive Slave Act, right? And Jamel Bouie from the New York Times had this great post that I saw earlier today, who, you know, was basically saying that that the, you know, when we think about the Civil War, that it was in, you know, about, you could argue that in fact it was about states' rights, because it was about the right of free states to remain free, right, without having you know, the slavery imposed upon them, right? And in some ways, what you just described feels like that to me too, right? This idea that citizenship, you know, would somehow be determined state to state, and that it is states that believe in the 14th Amendment and believe in the Constitution, saying that, you know, we are going to be holding on to that right within the Constitution, fighting for that right, to make sure that we don't have people saying to us that people born in our states are not citizens, even though the Constitution says that they are. I want to talk a little bit about the 14th Amendment, but I do want to highlight a couple of things, right? So there was a lot of decisions that happened today, but there was an important decision that happened yesterday, which was focused on Planned Parenthood, and essentially the Supreme Court saying that South Carolina could in fact ban the use of Medicaid for services at Planned Parenthood. And this is devastating for low-income communities and for women of color and for Black women in particular, in part because we know that people use Planned Parenthood clinics for all kinds of regular, everyday medical services. We're not talking about abortion, right? We're talking about screenings, right? We're talking about birth control, right? We're talking about basic medical services, and that people will not be able to use Medicaid for those services any longer. So yes, this is about defunding Planned Parenthood and using this as an opportunity for other states, right, not just South Carolina, to defund Planned Parenthood and the services that they provide to our communities. We also had the court uphold a provision of Obamacare, thereby saving it for the umpteenth time. They made a decision about internet access for rural communities. Essentially, conservatives had brought a challenge. They upheld the programs for access to rural communities. So conservatives challenged the power of Congress to create programs that provide subsidies for internet and phone service in rural communities. Now, I don't know why conservatives would be opposed to internet access for people in rural communities, but they were, and the Supreme Court said no, actually, those programs can stay. We also saw the court postpone or push, kick the can down the road, I guess, on a redistricting question that it was creating a...
They love that case.
Right. The redistricting case that would created a new district in Louisiana, a new black district, congressional district in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And the court essentially said, go back and, they come back with and we'll do new arguments, right? And they may, I guess, ask them to look at some new questions. But it sounds like, in the way that the Roberts Court has done around a whole host of issues around voting rights, they essentially said, you all go away and strengthen your argument so we can get rid of this thing, right? That's what it felt like to me.
Right. I mean, right. They've been trying to strike down the Voting Rights Act for forever, right? Mm-hmm. So they keep. They just want another bite at the apple, right? And so it's ridiculous because they're just biding their time, mm-hmm. And looking for more arguments and hoping that some things will happen in the federal courts. Because also remember, what is also happening in the federal courts on voting rights is that there's this case in the Eighth Circuit that says that individuals can't bring voting rights cases,
right.
Right.
So, will you actually explain that? Because I had forgotten about that. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a case that is in the Eighth Circuit, which covers Missouri, Arkansas, the Dakotas. That basically the court there said that even though people have been bringing cases under the Voting Rights Act, like individuals, an individual voter, mm-hmm, right, mm-hmm. an organization like the NAACP, et cetera, the court said no. There is no individual right to bring a case under the Voting Rights Act or even organizations. Only the Department of Justice can do that.
Right.
It's crazy. Right. It is crazy. But it stands. That case still stands in the Eighth Circuit. So you can imagine, they're really just trying to line up all the ways in which they can go after the Voting Rights Act. So this is another one of those cases where it's yep, bring it back to us, because by next year maybe we'll have some new things to hit you with.
Right. And so what's so crazy about that one is it literally is that hypothetical, I as a voter have been discriminated against. I want to sue because my vote is being taken away from me.
I mean, Adrianne, I've been doing voting rights litigation for 30 years. Representing individuals, a 93-year-old lady in Pennsylvania, come on, and that's the people who are aggrieved, right? Who mm-hmm. are the people who've been harmed by the actions of the state.
Yeah,
and now they're saying that you, voter, so what? You actually cannot bring a lawsuit,
right?
And you got to rely on the government.
Right. It has to come from a department. Right. Because it has to come from a Department of Justice who has said that they are not litigating civil rights of any kind.
Pam Biondi is not going to actually protect any voters.
Right. So I want to just sort of bring this back around, because I know that we've talked about this before. We just have a couple of minutes left, but we continue to talk about the way that this president in particular, from his first term to now, has said that he wants to get rid of the 14th Amendment. Right. He's he clearly with his executive order was with the stroke of this pen, I will eliminate it. People said no. We're back now with this now kind of a mess in terms of what the Supreme Court's decision today. We know that that last week we were talking about the Scrimeti case and the denying or banning gender affirming care for minors in Tennessee, which is really this broader issue about equal protection, which is one of the three main clauses of the 14th Amendment. So that's sort of saying, okay, you don't have to have equal protection even when there's clear discrimination. We saw the decision this week also about being able to deport people that you've decided don't belong in this country, that you can deport them to third party countries, essentially without due process. Due process is the second core element of the 14th Amendment. Mm-hmm. And now we have this birthright citizenship ruling, which is those are the three tenets of the 14th Amendment, that this court is essentially saying that the administration or anyone does not have to pay any attention to. Just in the couple of minutes that we have left, what do you make of this? And you have 2 minutes. Tell us.
I mean, the 14th Amendment is the whole enchilada, right? Of the panoply of rights.
Right.
That have been, it is the part of the Constitution, the amendments that actually has protected our people, Latino people, on the basis of religion, on the basis of gender and sex. It is the heart of our fundamental rights in this country. And without it, we've got nothing. And that's what they want. That's what they're going for. Because this is how fascism works, right? Fascism doesn't want you to have rights. They don't want you to be able to dissent. They don't want you to be able to have due process and challenge their decisions, right? They don't want you to be able to have any protection because they get to decide. And so that's what fascism is. And so the 14th Amendment stands in their way, right? And the courts, who are the check on the Constitution. So they got to take out the courts and they got to take out the 14th Amendment. And we should know that it did not start with the Trump administration. The 14th Amendment has been under attack by the right wing for decades.
Right. And culminates in a moment where there is a consolidation of power in our country. Right. So I wish we had a happy thing to end on, but we sort of don't. But I always appreciate you, of course, coming on and laying this out for us, not just the individual details of the legal cases, but also this broader context for what we are facing. Because we've seen authoritarianism in this country. As Black folks, right, we have seen or have been governed by authoritarianism before, and that is what we were living under before these Reconstruction amendments passed, right? Including,
I've got good news, Adrian.
Okay, what is it?
I've got good news.
Okay, you got
the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court term is over.
Oh, yes.
Can't do anything
well,
else.
That is something to applaud, Andy. We can applaud that. And we appreciate you. Thank you. It is over for now. But I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for bringing us good news at the end. When we come forward, we're going to be joined by Kevin Cosney, Associate Director and co-founder of the California Black Power Network, to talk more about how Black organizers are responding in this moment where we see ICE raids across our community. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Mike Island with BIN News Now. Disorderly conduct and battery charges are coming to the forefront in a complaint filed against an embattled Black Arkansas mayor. According to Fox 13, West Helena, Arkansas Mayor Christopher Franklin reveals charges in 2023 alleging he was caught on video striking a woman and without justification. There are also allegations of financial misdeeds in office and false documentation. Brandy Crawford, who lives in the area, didn't know this was happening.
I had no idea that was going on. That's really horrible.
Crawford, who is African American, says that the mayor must be held accountable for his actions. President Trump is pulling the plug on all trade talks with Canada and says it's in response to Canada's digital services tax on American technology companies. Trump called Canada a very difficult country to trade with and said U.S. farmers have faced a tariff from the country of up to 400% for years on dairy products. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In the heart of downtown L.A., 110 southbound before 9th Street, a two-vehicle collision is clearing off the right-hand shoulder. South 110, you're tapping brakes from the 5 down to Gage Avenue. Long Beach, on the 710 northbound before Del Amo Boulevard, an accident is in the left-hand lane, and this is causing a backup leaving downtown Long Beach starting at Pico Avenue. 210 westbound before Sierra Madre Boulevard, watch for a two-vehicle accident. This one's blocking the left-hand lane of the roadway.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A troubling trend continued this week for HBCU men's basketball programs around the country. For the 13th straight year, no HBCU player was selected in the NBA draft. The two-day draft ended Thursday night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The last time an HBCU player was picked in the NBA draft was in 2012. Norfolk State center Kyle O'Quinn was a second-round pick of the Orlando Magic. The Dodgers have quietly moved into a tie with the Detroit Tigers for the best record in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers and Tigers are 51-31. Since June 14th, the Dodgers are 11-2. They take a 4-game winning streak into tonight's game in Kansas City. The Angels have won 3 straight. They play the Washington Nationals tonight in Anaheim. It's a milestone game for the Angels. If they win, they go above the 500 mark for the first time since April 20th when they were 11-10. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, also known as AD, a type of dementia that affects memory, thinking, and behavior, making everyday tasks challenging. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? There are things you can do to help reduce your risk for developing AD. Managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure is crucial. Staying physically active, maintaining social connections, eating a healthy diet, and keeping your mind engaged with activities like reading or puzzles can all contribute to brain health. It's also important to recognize some common signs and symptoms of early AD, such as forgetfulness that causes problems with everyday life, asking the same question a few times in a row, and difficulty concentrating on basic tasks. If you see these signs in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are bringing our attention back to Los Angeles. We started today's show in New York. We went to Washington, D.C., and specifically to the Supreme Court. And now we are coming back home to L.A. And joining us is Kevin Cosney, Associate Director and co-founder of the California Black Power Network. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us. I know you are incredibly busy at this point in the year.
Aren't we all? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming back on, actually. So I wanted to talk a little bit. We talked a little bit earlier in the show with Judith Brown-Dianis about some of the Supreme Court cases, right? We talked about specifically the birthright citizenship case just at the end of the last hour, and what that means, right? What that means in terms of the chaos that it creates, what it means to have a country in which individual states can determine that you are a citizen or not a citizen, and it really does, speak to just all of the chaos that is happening right now in this country about deciding who belongs and who does not belong, and how we're going to treat people, right, based on whether or not we think they belong here. And we certainly have been watching over, the last, I don't even know what it is at this point, 3 weeks has it been, since the ICE raids began and, Trump sent in the military. And communities have responded, right? So it isn't just as if they're having their way. People have said, no, we don't want this, and are resisting in all kinds of ways. This week on Tuesday, just this past Tuesday, a group of Black organizations came together to hold a press conference. It including Black Alliance for Just Immigration, BAJI. It included your organization, California Black Power Network, and many of your partner organizations, including the Community Coalition, Black Women for Wellness, and many others. And so I wanted to ask you first, just sort of set the table for us. What was the motivation behind Black groups in LA, in South LA specifically, calling for a press conference to talk about the ICE raids and the sort of increase of military law enforcement presence in our communities?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that question. Right. Again, California Black Power Network is a network of 47 now Black-led grassroots organizations across the state working to improve the conditions, the lived conditions of Black folks. And by that, we mean all Black folks. Mm-hmm. I think one of the driving forces that brought us together this Tuesday was to name one, the erasure of Black folks in this conversation, and name the direct impacts to Black folks in this conversation around immigration, mm-hmm. And two, name the threats, right, that Black folks face in this current moment while we see the rollback of rights, while we see the scaling up and coordination amongst law enforcement agencies from the local to the national. Mm-hmm. And so I think, again, to maybe double click on all of that, as much as folks have talked about immigration in these last few weeks, one, there's been very little conversation around the travel ban, right. which is really limiting and narrowing, quote unquote, legal mm-hmm. immigration, right. and almost exclusively targets majority Black countries from Africa and the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. Two, right, again, just as we talk about deportations and all of this, again, more erasure when it comes to Black immigrants and refugees, right, knowing that while one, Black folks are immigrants, and immigrants right. are part of the Black community, right? Let's just right. say that and name right. that. Right. And that was really the focus that we wanted to have on Tuesday. And Nana Gyamfi at BAJI will often, lift up that while Black folks make up 8% of the immigrant community, they make up 20% of deportations, noting the intersection of race and nationality, right. Wow. And how that has a deep impact on our folks. When we talk about the criminalization of Black folks, mm-hmm. We know that has, again, disproportionate impact on Black immigrants. Mm-hmm. So, again, naming that, right, that immigration has impacts on Black folks. And if you're concerned for Black folks, we should be talking about Black immigrants and what this means. Mm-hmm. Secondly, as you already talked about, the erosion of rights, whether it's due process, whether it's birthright citizenship. These are amendments that our folks, our ancestors have fought for, right. and eroding those for some will come back to bite us. Mm-hmm. Being able to pick and choose what state can honor which rights or what mm-hmm. rights apply to mm-hmm. what group of people is a dangerous and slippery slope. Right. And
right.
of course,
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but what is brought up to me is for due process, for example, right? Like as long as we've been in this country, I would dare say that most of the time we had no due process, right? So we can think of, the Jim Crow South courtrooms, where there was no due process for Black folks, right? And so that we're talking about going back to that, right? And there's no way to suggest that misses us.
That's right. And this isn't just assumptions or conjecture. Right. We've heard this man say homegrowns are next. Right. And we know who is meant by that. We know that will be explicitly Black folks, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe others get to join in on that as well. But we know that when they talk about deporting homegrowns, we're talking about Black folks.
Right.
And of course, right, just the consolidation and scaling up of law enforcement agencies, the coordination between ICE, LAPD, National Guard, Marines should be concerning, right, for folks who are concerned about state violence and the ways in which Black folks are criminalized and disproportionately harmed by state. And, right, for folks who are saying, hey, where's the focus on housing? Where's the focus on all these other issues that are impacting Black folks? Well, what does it mean for the city of Los Angeles to spend $32 million supporting ICE raids just in the last 3 weeks? How could those funds have been used to house Black folks in LA who are disproportionately impacted, I think making up 60% of the unhoused population in LA. So when we talk about resource allocation, there are so many more things that we could be investing in that could actually have direct impact, a positive impact on Black folks than terrorizing immigrant communities. Including Black immigrant communities.
And so when you all pulled folks together to do a press conference with I think the intention of saying, like, I think, and you're sort of raising this, like, there's a narrative out there that doesn't include us, one, and that we need to try and reshape around the impact of this on Black folks, because there's one, these things affect all of us, but also there's a need for us to be in this fight and resistance moment together, right? And so there were also immigrant rights organizations that, in addition to Baji, that were at the press conference. And part of that really was about showing Black-Brown solidarity in a part of the city where that has been the norm for for decades at this point. But that seemed to be the other part of the message that you all were putting out as well, which is, we understand that we're in this fight together and that we need to be in relationship with Latino serving organizations as well. Is that right, or am I?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just putting words in y'all's mouth.
I think that's right, and I think, right, that there are, even in that space, right, a understanding and a recognition that there are deeper conversations that we need to have, right, to continue to build that solidarity. We know that there's, anti-Blackness in many non-Black communities, including Latino communities, and that was something that was addressed and named in that space. And so I think, talking about solidarity is one thing. Doing solidarity is another, and I think these are one of the first steps that we can take. And, certainly there has been Black-Brown alliances in Los Angeles and across this country for years, decades, centuries. And so these are not new things. But I think part of the conversation is, how do we do that? How do we address some of the anti-Blackness that may be out there? How do we address the tensions, right, that Black folks are feeling when we're being pushed out of the city and the county through gentrification, when folks are struggling to find jobs? How do we address those in real ways? And both, right, come to some equal understanding, do the work with our communities to break down some of the myths and misconceptions that we have of each other. How do we address some of the systemic issues that are driving some of the push out, whether it's talk about landlords and developers that are racking up the price of rent? How do we deal with corporations and business owners who are sending jobs overseas, who are automating jobs, or feeding this race to the bottom and trying to find the cheapest labor force?
Right. So that is thank you. That was helpful, right, to sort of bring that piece into the conversation. When we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation with Kevin Cosney from the California Black Power Network, and I want to recenter it, I think, on the question of what can Black folks be doing, or should Black folks be doing in this moment, when we come forward here at KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Looking
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caspvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
What make you? Yeah.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to The Black Pack, and we are wrapping up our show in conversation with Kevin Cosney, the Associate Director and co-founder of the California Black Power Network. And we are talking about Black organizations responding in this moment of ICE raids, violence against our neighbors across the city, certainly here in South LA, and also the response of Black organizations to the question of the impact all of this on Black communities and on Black immigrants in particular. So, Kevin, I appreciate you joining us for this conversation. We were talking about the press conference that happened on Tuesday, where Black organizations came together to raise these issues, sort of address the questions about the ways in which the implications of expanded law enforcement and militarization of our streets, as well as folks being disappeared, right, kidnapped. Literally kidnapped off the street. And we use that word, I just want to say again, I know I've said it before, because it isn't as if law enforcement is engaging in a conversation with the people they're snatching. They're not saying, are you a citizen? Can you show me your papers? Right? That's not happening. They're just snatching people off the street, men with masks, right? There's some question about who they are at this point, right? Are they actual ICE agents or not? But they're being snatching people off the street, and then people's family members don't know where they are. Right. They're just lost in a system. And so we need to keep that at the forefront as we talk about this, because it's violent and it's dangerous. And that is what's playing out on our streets. One of the things that happened at the press conference, I wanted to just get your quick opinion on, Kevin, is there was a small protest that sort of happened at the end of the press conference, where some folks, Black folks, came and confronted the organizers of the event, and the leaders of the organizations that were there. There was, sort of chanting around reparations. There seemed to be the conflict being that we can't focus on immigration and reparations, and so we had to choose, which I think is a false choice. But I also know that your organization does a lot of work and has done a ton of work on reparations here in California. And I just wonder how you all see this sort of pitting against each other, these two different issues.
Yeah. Again, I think that is a false choice, a false dichotomy. We can walk and chew gum. We have a multi-issue agenda because we know that there are multiple issues impacting Black folks. Mm-hmm. Now, I certainly think that if you're all about reparations and you want to go all in on that fight, do so, right? But there are a number of us who can multitask and work on a multitude of issues. Mm-hmm. Again, I think one of the pillars of reparations, right, when we talk about the international standards for reparation, we talk about compensation, we talk about restitution, rehabilitation, satisfaction, but we also talk about cessation of harm and non-repetition. Uh-huh. And that is critical, right, to say that if you're going to repair harms caused by the violation of human rights, right, then you can't continue to violate human rights. Right. Mm-hmm. And so as we see, the buildup of law enforcement, the divestment from community that pours into that, the state violence that follows in that is part of the harm that we're trying to repair from. Mm-hmm. As we're just talking about Jim Crow era lack of due process, and even now some of the violations around due process. And so we cannot say that we are looking to repair harms of the past when they are actively trying to roll back rights to bring back the past.
Right. Well, and actively harming people right now, like literally, creating, situations where, there will be plenty of lawsuits, right, coming out of this. But we are also seeing, this idea of people getting disappeared, like under the cover of darkness and being shipped off to places. And I think that's like that is we can't lose sight of that, because it really is, whatever the, issues to your point, the issues that people feel like they are compelled to work on, they should work on those issues. But we also cannot ever lose sight of the fact that the process that is happening is dehumanizing to folks, and we can't participate in that, right? Like that's not a right.
Absolutely. Again, it's been said many other times, right? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that's absolutely true. Just for humanity's sake, right? And I think it's worth noting that there were 200 some organizations across the country that got these letters that were seeking to intimidate them. Some of those organizations were Black organizations, Black civil rights organizations. Mm-hmm. Many of those organizations are non-Black organizations or multiracial organizations that have been in full and complete support of Black reparations for Black Californians, right? So these are ally organizations who have been supportive and in solidarity with Black folks in this fight for repair, and they're also being targeted for this. And so to me, this is not just intimidation of the immigrant rights movement, but for organizations overall that are standing for social and racial justice. Again, that should be a concern.
Right. The idea that we have a government that says we want to harm groupings of people, and if any of you try to help those people, then we're going to come after you. That's really what this. I mean, it's really pretty basic and simple, right? And that's right. we have to stand against that. So I want to just talk a little bit about how you all are talking to your members and with other organizations in terms of what folks can and should be doing right now in this moment to continue to say, we do not consent to what is happening in our name, in our neighborhoods. What are some of the things that people can be doing right now, or that the organizations that you all work with are planning to do?
Absolutely. Well, I won't give away the entire recipe and game plan, but I do think there are a number of things that folks can do, right? Certainly there are folks out in the street using their voice, engaging in peaceful protest, and I think that is an important part of the strategy. I do think that as Black folks, we know and understand what that means for us, and that being on the front line makes us more vulnerable, right, to state violence, more so than other communities. So I would say, engage in that strategically and with care for yourself. I think going out in unity is always helpful. Going out with non-Black allies is even more powerful and offers more protection. So I think we should be. That is certainly a strategy and a tactic that folks can engage in. I think we should do it smartly. But we know for many reasons not all folks are open or able to do that. We have a voice, and that voice can be used in so many ways, whether it's having conversation with friends, families, and coworkers, whether it's posting online and speaking out, whether it's, engaging in some of the rapid response work and amplifying updates so folks can be aware and be safe. It can be about supporting organizations that are protecting rights for folks. And again, if you're strictly concerned about Black folks, there are Black immigrant rights organizations like BAJI, like Haitian Bridge Alliance, like PANA, Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, that can and should be supported. And of course, right, lifting your voice to elected officials, I think, is extremely important to let them know that you don't stand for this. And so I think there's a number of ways that we can go out there. Not all of them mean putting your body on the line, but using your voice is always an option that we should always be using and considering.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that, because again, I continue to say that I know that people want to do things, and so every time we can give folks, some guidance on what they can do, I just think it's really helpful. And that, supporting other organizations, supporting neighbors, engaging in dialogue, that there is a range of things that people can do. I want to just say thank you again for coming on, for talking about what's happening right now, the work that your organization is doing, but also about the ways in which people are pulling together in coalition to try and address collectively this moment. So appreciate the work of the California Black Power Network. Thanks everyone for listening once again on a Friday afternoon where you could be doing anything and be anywhere else. I appreciate you all being here with us. This is the Black Pack. We will see you next Friday.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Island with BIN News Now. The Supreme Court is limiting the power of lower courts to block President Trump's agenda. The High Court ruling